Welcome to Turning Hard Times to Good Times. I'm your host, Jay Taylor. Really pleased to have with me once again Terry Lynch. Terry is the CEO of Power Metallic Mines. And maybe I should just give this disclaimer before we get started. I'm not being paid for this interview. I do own some shares of the stock of this company, and it is covered in my newsletter. And primarily, I'm doing this for the benefit of my paid subscribers, although it will go out to a larger group of people soon after it goes to my paid subscribers. Before I say hello to Terry, I should tell you that the stock trades in Canada under the symbol PNPN, PNPNF in the US, 232.8 million shares outstanding. Yeah, 282 fully diluted, I believe, $1.07, something like that in US money, giving it a market cap of just around $250 million. So it's not a penny stock like many of those that I cover in my newsletter, but it's definitely should not be a penny stock, and I think you'll understand why when Terry starts telling the story here. The company's Nisk project, polymetallic project, very exciting, extremely high grade numbers. This is, in my view, a very big deal. And obviously some other very smart people like Robert Friedland and Rob McEwen are very much of that mind as well. They are significant investors, and I should say that the management and the family own a big chunk of shares as well. So they're eating their cooking, as they say. Terry, thanks so much for joining me.
Jay, thanks for having us on. It's a great great night to be chatting. We were chatting just a little bit before we got off screen. I was saying that we've got some really killer news that's going out on the airwaves in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But it's happy days. So it's good.
Well, I mean, it's just incredible. The grades, especially the copper grades, are just out of this world. So whatever, we'll see what other good news you have for us in a few minutes, if it's more high grade or what it is. But in any event, Terry, I missed the big Voisey Bay move. I'm an old guy, so I was around, a fairly young guy, when the Voisey Bay nickel discovery was made. Then I heard about your nickel deposit, your nickel discovery. I said, oh, well, wow. And some people saying this thing has legs. It could be really big. I thought, maybe I got a chance to make some money on nickel yet before I exit this world. And you certainly do have nickel, but we're finding out you have an awful lot of other things like copper and platinum group metals and so forth. How do you view this project now, Terry? Do you see it more as a copper play or what?
Yeah, it's really interesting. We obviously started off as a traditional, I would say, nickel sulfide.
Uh-huh.
A nice, high grade relative for North American standards for sure. But along the path of looking for more nickel, we stumbled and stepped out. We'll joke about how that happened in a little bit, but it was sort of it was quite funny. But we ended up finding this crazy rich copper palladium zone, and it turned this deposit into a very rare deposit type called the orthomagmatic. Nickel, copper, PGE or noble metals, set up, and there's maybe 20 of these in the history of the world, and they're literally the world's greatest mines, like the world's most profitable mines. And like Norilsk is like obviously the most biggest mine in the world and the most profitable, the only $1 trillion mine in the history of the world. That's the granddaddy of this type. But there's Sakatti in Finland, Voisey's Bay, Marinsky's Reef. These are like legendary mines, right? So getting a discovery like this was, just a miraculous, really, and that's what's made the obviously the stock had a great run in 2024, sort of consolidated a bit last year, and this year I think we're especially with the news we just are putting out, and the other news that's coming, I think we're going to see how big this is going to be. As you say, at 250 million, we're not a small cap, in terms of the usual junior of like being 25 million or 50 million or so. But I think this thing can be a few billion. So I think there's still, like, in my mind, there's definitely 10 and 20 and 30 baggers in this stock, which is exciting, right? But it's because I think it's just going to be a really big discovery, and it's so high grade, that it's going to be so profitable, right? and that's grade is your friend in this life, so
It's high grade, and as I understand, Terry, it starts at surface, basically, right?
yeah, pretty much like 40 meters down
Yeah,
starts, and
right. So, and it
it's
probably has depth. I mean, you've done some work.
oh yeah, we're well over 600 meters down and
Yeah.
still going, so these things at the top it's somewhere around 450 meters wide. So they say in this area that if your width is X, the depth will be at least 10X.
10x sense. That's it.
We're not going to drill to 4,500 meters and find out
Right.
because it's prohibitively expensive to do so. But I think the point is we'll probably definitely drill down to 1.2 kilometers or so and just see. I mean, and then the neat part about these systems is that they say you should visualize it as almost like as your hand, and think of the palm of your hand is the nickel sulfide, which was the parent. They all start
Right.
as a sulfate systems, and then these are very heavily remobilized systems. And so some sort of hydrothermal action happened hundreds of millions of years ago and came down and sucked the copper sulfides up to the surface, and they just kept pumping in these chutes and these sort of trapped areas, and that's what made them so super high grade, and just kept pumping in there until they lost their energy. And so that's what we would like. The lion zone is one of those chutes, and these polymetallics have multiple chutes. And the game now is okay, find more of the chutes, and then also find the parent. So we're on the track of other chutes right now, and we think we've honed in on where the parent is, and we're drilling those areas right now. So we're rubbing our hands. With the exploration team is super stoked about what's coming in the early part of 2026, and today we released our Met study, which is one of the things we promised to people in Q1, and
Yeah.
actually coming out now, and the you and I were discussing it beforehand. The grades, I'll just read them off,
Sure.
just so the listener will understand. We've used a recovery of 80%. Okay, and that was what we thought was a conservative recovery rate. So listen to these numbers. So 80% across the board. So for copper, 98.9%.
That's it's almost 99%.
99, right? Yeah. For palladium, 93.9, platinum, 96.8, gold, 85%, and silver, 88.9. So it's almost a full 20% or 18% increase from our 80%. And wow, is all you can say, really. I mean, when my team got this, and our VP of exploration got that, he went back to them 5 times to confirm.
He wasn't believing it.
Yeah, he just couldn't believe it. But yeah, no, and Steve Beresford was like, yeah, I was expecting high grades because, he said this stuff is so remobilized. It's almost like Mother Earth has refined it for us already. And he says, I knew this would drop out,
Wow.
and so that, it'll what's interesting about this is it'll also potentially leads to potential the easier ways to commercialize it, even beyond concentrate. Like we can probably go to copper sheet and different things there that maybe now much easier to do as a result. And yeah, so it's got a series of very positive implications for us. And but the first one is that instantly it just makes your economics that much better.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they were good to start with, Terry. As we were talking before we started
Yeah.
recording here, that you said you're confident you already have a mine just simply because of the grade. Now you
Yeah.
can add almost 20% to those to the
To the
value.
bottom line, right?
But I'd like to get a sense from you of how, first of all, you mentioned sort of the mothership or the source.
Yeah.
Is this perceived to be something at depth or along strike?
Yeah. So we at the start of the summer program in June of last year, we drilled a 1,000-meter hole, purely research, really, just to look back at the line zone, using the borehole EM. This was Steve's Beresford's primary search technique, and he wanted to look back at it from the outside of the ore body, looking back in, but as luck would have it, at the bottom of that hole, we got the biggest hit we'd ever had. And the guys were like saying, "Well, let's extend the hole," and I'm like saying, "No, no, no," because we're about to push off our ground onto the hydrolands, and it's
Mhm.
like, we don't own that. So I said, "I'm working on it. I'm working on it,"
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I said, "Let's." I said, "If we hit it, then I got to disclose it, and then it's like a whole world of problem, because
yeah,
its price is going to go up, and it's." So, yeah, some of it will be on our land, but not all of it. And I said, we got to stop. So we stopped, which was tough to do because the guys were
yeah,
keen.
sure.
But and then when we went back after we got the land in November, it obviously took longer than we thought, but we got it. And then eventually we went back in and we extended through, and it didn't hit. Generally, with the borehole, what happens? It takes one or two, because you get the XY, not the XYZ with
Uh-huh,
the borehole.
uh-huh.
So we know it's out there. We just, it's a matter of finding the angle. So
Mhm.
that now we extended that hole from 1,000 to 1,300 meters, and we got a very good reading over the last couple hundred meters of where it's at. So we're actually targeting that object, from our data set perspective, is 4 times larger than the line zone. So the
Wow.
line zone is right now, analysts will say, pick a number of what grade you want, but sort of without using the old recovery numbers, it was 13 million to 8 million tons at between 5 to 7%
Uh-huh.
copper equivalent. So if you're 5 times the size of that, well, now you're starting to get big, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, but that's likely to happen. We think that these systems are what they call their zone systems, and we would expect it to at the bottom of the zone be a very high grade nickel copper,
Okay.
with PGEs, but what at the top of it, it's very cuprous, with the
Mhm.
copper, the
Right.
platinum, palladium, and the gold and silver. Right now, it's probably about 40% copper and 60% precious metals.
Oh, wow.
Or 45, 55, something in that range. It varies
Wow.
as
Uh-huh.
fluctuations go. But when we started this thing, platinum and palladium was $1,000, and now it's 2,000.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
you know,
gold's at 4,700 almost.
yeah, exactly.
Silver's a knock on the door of 100. So yeah, the world is changing very rapidly. But you have at the northeastern end of this trend, this mineralized trend, is your lion zone.
yes,
That's the copper rich end. Going to
yes,
the southwest, it's the
is a
nickel.
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 Yeah,
Okay, so but you've got something like 5.5 kilometers between those two discoveries. Are
yeah,
you doing anything along that trend? Are you
yeah.
have
So
100,
we're
as I understand, you have a 100,000 meter drill program coming up now, right? You
yeah,
started
yeah.
that
So
now?
we released 17,000 meters of that.
Oh,
Probably another 13,000 or 14,000 is in the various stages of assay. Will be
uh-huh.
out probably toward the end of starting towards the end of the month and through the month of February. And then we're going to do 65,000 or so the balance of this year,
Hmm.
and that'll get us to 100,000. And yeah, we're our primary targets are what we would call, we're obviously continuing to explore and grow the Lion Zone, but then there's what we call Lion West, because what happened is as we went further west on Lion, we
Hmm.
hit a fault, and now, but we've crossed over the fault on the other side of the fault. We've picked up some stuff on the other side. So we
Uh-huh.
think Lion West is prospective. So we're drilling that. And then the Lion Zone was very close to the border, which is why we stopped the drilling that I mentioned
Hmm.
earlier, until we got the land. Now that we have this land, we call this land the Hydrolands, because it had not been staked by anybody, because Hydro Quebec had a restriction on it from back in the day when they're building the hydro plants up there. It no longer had any practical business purpose, and we were able to, with the help of the James Bay Cree, to get Hydro Quebec to remove that restriction
Uh-huh.
and put it back into the sort of the uh, government of Quebec website, and we were able to get it from there, the stake it, which was awesome. And so we believe the second half of Lion containing the fold hinge is out there, and we're drilling that now. And
Hmm.
then the just to the east of Lion, there's a anomaly called Tiger that we've been working,
Yes.
which has had a lot of like Lion-like intersections, but smaller. And we haven't found like the zone yet there, but we've sort of identified through the borehole EM what we call Tiger Deep now at sort of about 400 meters from at depth down
Hmm.
to about 800 or 900, and we're drilling that. And then finally, the what we call the elephant, which is this big anomaly we talked about,
Yeah.
that we suspect if it's true to the history books, it will be the nickel
Copper.
copper. Yeah, and we've seen some pretty high grade footwall type of mobilized uh, high grade nickel, like several
Oh,
percentages of nickel in some of the footwalls,
oh,
so we're thinking that could be the prize down there, and we're going to be there in about 20 odd days because we're
cool.
drilling it right
So,
now.
so
So
this Lion West, is that like due west or is it sort of
yeah,
down?
so it's pretty much due west.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the
Okay.
line west is due west. Tiger is just about due east.
Hmm.
Uh, the fold hinge is it literally just if anybody would go to our site, there they can pull off the deck there.
Hmm.
There's a bit of a breakdown, and you can sort of see that there was that where we added the additional land where we think that's the fold hinges. The ultramafic comes back on the other side, so it's highly likely that it's out there. And then Tiger Deep is sort of underneath it, and
Hmm.
probably generated the whole thing. So that part's exciting. And I say to people, the cool part about this is that you know I when we raised that $50 million last February,
Hmm.
I think we got it because we were super cheap
Yeah.
relative to what we already had. And then we had this asymmetric upside on the exploration. And that's why we got the checks from people because last February was obviously this market is way frothier now than it was last February.
Right.
You know,
True.
and so, but I think we got that money then because people thought this was a really good play.
Hmm.
And so I think that now it's even more compelling because like the commodities have moved probably 50%,
Sure.
and we've added like 600% more land, and now we've improved our recoveries by like almost
Oh,
20%,
yeah. Uh-huh.
like it's like holy cow, so it's
Yeah.
like yet the stock is I mean it's pretty much flat from last year, but I think we're starting to break through now, so we'll see. It seems like I believe it should be significantly re-rated here, and
Yeah.
we'll see. That's why we're out and we're in London. We're talking with a bunch of our existing shareholders
Sure.
tomorrow, and we just came back from Saudi Arabia and from the FMF down there, and so we're out. We knew this news season was going to start to happen. We get some of this big news out. And we thought that's probably the catalyst we need to sort of break forward, and let's hope that'll break the dam.
So you mentioned Saudi Arabia. You got some plays, copper plays, or what are you looking at over there?
Yeah, we basically are looking at VMSs. So it's
Mhm.
more like I would say, historically gold, copper, lead, zinc.
Sure.
We're on strike with this Barrick Ma'aden joint venture that get this they basically proved up like a $5 billion project with 90,000 meters of drilling,
Hmm.
just insane, and none of it more than 200 meters deep.
Wow.
You know,
With depth,
so
with depth
yeah,
potential.
and so we're in the in that area with a very similar what we think is a lookalike potential area, and we were just out on the site this past weekend with our team, kickstarting the exploration,
Hmm.
and we're really impressed with how cost effective it is to explore in Saudi. I mean, it's
Uh-huh.
unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, we're looking all in. I think in like all in for sure, no more than 140, including assays. But we're getting the assays in 2 weeks,
Oh,
and so you say that's good, okay, that's right, half the price, okay, and it's like a third of Chile, and then it's like, but this is all near surface, so it's like I don't have to go down 300 meters before I
yeah.
get to my target zone. It's there. So it's like,
Hmm.
so it's like, I think that's one of the things I was most shocked at, going through that with our team. We were sort of saying, wow, you can have like a $5 million exploration program here. It's going to have the impact of a $20 million exploration
Yeah,
program,
sure.
which is, if you're in a prospect rich environment like it is in Saudi, I think there's going to be some discoveries. So I think this year there'll be some discoveries in Saudi, and that'll be exciting for the market.
Hmm.
And we'll expect in our project over there. It's still early days, and we have to do a lot of the generative work, and that's what the teams are out there doing. But we'd probably get to it like in Q4. We're definitely, you know, being excited about getting in drilling there, but we'll do the science first and drill last, measure twice and cut once, but we're definitely excited by what we see on the ground. And the kingdom has done an amazing job of making it
Making it work.
very actionable, that you can get in there and get to work.
Yeah, I guess probably because there's not been a lot of exploration there over the years. But you don't want
There's
to lose.
not.
We don't want people to lose track of what you're doing on Quebec, because that's where
No, no.
the immediate action. And I have to ask you, of the other orthomagnetic deposits. I mean, you're looking at incredible copper grades of, I think, I don't know, something like 7% or something like that in
Yeah.
your resource, right? How
Yes.
how do your grades hold up with some of those or other? I realize you're still early days, but how?
Pretty much that there's only, yeah, and this sounds like incredibly self-serving, but there's only three ore bodies in the history of the world that rank with us. And it's basically Oktyabrsky, which is the heart of Norilsk, which is, Jay, it's 1 square kilometer, and it's got over $1 trillion worth of material on the ground. In 1 square kilometer. How crazy is that? So
Uh,
that's Oktyabrsky, and then Morrison, which is the really premium footwall deposit at Sudbury. So it's basically Sudbury and Oktyabrsky and us in terms of this type of grade,
uh-huh.
which is a pretty select group to be in. But there you are. That's
Yeah.
that's what the history books will show.
Well, so you've got the metallurgy now. I guess at least preliminary studies are looking very, very good. And you're in Quebec, mining friendly Quebec. Talk just a little bit about. I think most people know the advantages of
Yeah, I
Quebec,
mean,
but
I
talk
think
about Quebec and the infrastructure. All of
yeah. So
that
so
you've
there's
got.
there's three big reasons to like Quebec as a miner. The first is the infrastructure, right? So in our case, we drive off a route north right to the site, right to the road, right to the rig, and so we didn't have to construct a highway; it's already there. The hydro is actually on our site, so we got power to the site. Hydro Quebec substations across the road, so again, you got power and roads. We're 8 kilometers outside the city of Namaska, which has got a regional airport. It's got accommodations for our guys. So again, like super keeps the economics down. Because again, in mining, if you don't have this stuff, your
Yeah,
project then has to finance it and have its profits, right? So that really kicks into shareholder values and returns. So not having to do that is hugely beneficial for us. So that Quebec has been great like that, and many other places in Quebec provide similar logistics. So that's one. Second, the Quebec government's done a really great job of working with the First Nations, making them partners in the projects where they feel like they're getting a cut of their revenue, and they are, and
good.
they're very much enthusiastic about mining. So they helped us get the hydrolands, for example, the James Bay Cree.
Oh yeah.
Great guys,
Uh-huh.
and so we're working hand in glove with them. I'm talking to the chief next Monday on some things, and they're super beneficial to work with. So again, you know, community support is so critical for successful mining operations. You got to have it. So we've got that. Third thing is the physical terms. So and support structure.
Yeah.
So for example, when we raised that 50 million, we did 40 million flow and 20 million or 10 million hard. So the flow basically, the investors at the time paid $1.45 a share for all the shares, but the company on 80% of the thing got 283 a share.
Wow.
1.95 times.
Wow.
So that means less dilution for all of our existing shareholders and more cash to work with, right? So that's on exploration. So almost basically 2-for-1 exploration. And then And then as you get into development, you got the 30% federal tax credit, that you can turn to cash, and then basically 25% for the provincial tax credit on taxes in the future. So incredible subsidies that make it much more economic to get your mine in production and to make it super cash flow positive in those early days. So again, de-risks it a lot. So Quebec is arguably, and of course, it has a great mineral history, right? It has made many great discoveries. So there's lots of like skilled labor there, and good drillers. Good, lots of an enormously beneficial labor pool.
Hmm.
Cheap hydropower. Yeah, just so many great points.
Yeah. I have to ask you about this. I found this on your deck. You described the lion zone using a metaphor of a duck-billed platypus, the duck-billed platypus. Can you
That's
explain that? That's
I'm
sort
gonna
of,
blame I'm gonna
I
blame
had it.
Robert Fried. I'm gonna blame Robert Friedland on that one.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a classic. I'm meeting him. We had talked on the phone a few times, but I'm meeting him in New York at the Carlisle for the first time, and he he sits down after a couple of pleasantries. He said, Terry, let's cut to the chase here. He says, look, there's one of two things have happened here. He says, either you salted the core, or he says you've got a duck-billed platypus. And, and I had no idea. I just started laughing, and he starts laughing. He says, I know you didn't salt the core. We already checked that. And he said, what you have is a duck-billed platypus. He says, that shouldn't have happened, but it exists in nature. So
Right.
it did. And he
Yeah.
says, I've been lucky in my life a couple of times where I found things that shouldn't have happened, but did, and they were big. So he says, that's why I'm in.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the duck-billed platypus story.
Yeah.
And that's really just this two systems colliding,
Uh-huh.
the nickel system and the copper system. And then they just it creates a big and a super rich expression is what we found, but it's very complex. It's folded like crazy, and
Sure, it's
it's
very old.
like as and super old, and as
Yeah.
you know, Jay, you've been around the game, and this is a tough game.
Oh,
Mother
man.
Earth, she's so tricky,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like just when you think you got it all figured out, no, you
Uh,
don't have it figured out at all. And so this year was, we thought we were gonna. I thought this year we were gonna have a lot more drilling success, and then we had in 2025. I mean, we still had a good year, still grew the resource, still was beneficial, but because we didn't go after our A stuff because it was too close to the land we were trying to get,
yeah.
we just sort of left it. So I think 2026 is going to be that year where we really see how big this is going to be,
Uh-huh.
because we
Uh-huh.
sort of got all the land we want, and we've
Yeah.
got, obviously got the cash to drill, and we're getting after it now. So I think we're sort of rubbing our hands together, thinking, okay, this is when we start to add on the tonnage, and let's really start to skate this thing into hopefully world class category.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess last year there wasn't as much news as a lot of people were expecting. It's probably one of the reasons the shares haven't performed as well as they certainly seem like they should. But I mean, I guess I like to wind up these discussions by asking, what the share price drivers are. I think you just kind of hit it there when you talked about that highly prospective area where you couldn't drill last year because you didn't have the land yet. So I guess can we expect some drill results on a pretty ongoing basis now as we
Yeah, for sure. So I think the first catalyst, I mean, I think the Met study should be the catalyst for a
sure
re-rate for what we've
right
already done.
now,
I
right
think we
now.
should we
Yeah.
should triple, if there's any justice in this world. But I mean, obviously, I say that I don't control it. This is just me, but I'm saying compared to our peers, it's ample justification for it now, and especially with this network study, which seriously de-risks this thing. So that's one. Second, we've got a lot of high impact exploration happening. So
Yeah.
if one of these things hits, because remember when we hit the land zone, we put 15 drill holes successively, positive hits, big hits, one after another. Because when you get this zone, it's meaty, man. You're going to hit this thing. So we got the rigs, we'll be turning on it. So
You
once we
got it.
get that, yeah, our teeth in it, we'll be on it like Jack the Bear. So that part will be exciting. And we've probably got like four of those. What would happen if all four hit? I don't know, but it's a pleasant thought.
Well, justice, as you know, Terry, I mean, I had to think of our discussion. We had a different discussion about short selling.
Yes.
And, I mean, the short sellers might get their comeuppance this time if they try to really do you in, huh? Let's hope so.
Yeah, I think they're gonna, have to beat a retreat because, the bottom line, nothing's gonna stop this from becoming a mine. I don't
Yeah,
believe,
yeah,
honestly.
right.
I believe there's just too much high quality rock in the ground, and that world needs that high quality rock, and it's in an area where it's safe to actually invest and get the skilled people to make it happen. So I think that's going to happen, and it's just a question of just how big it's going to be, and as it gets further de-risked and we start to get bigger, these guys got to be getting terrified because there's a world of hurt. So,
Yeah,
and I would love to give them that hurt too, Jay.
yeah,
I got to say,
exactly. We wouldn't shed any tears, would we?
no, we would
Um,
not. We
yeah,
would not.
I mean, and then you think about the critical metals and almost everything you have there.
Yep.
What's not a critical metal among your suite of metals? I mean, it's
Yeah, pretty much
copper,
I'd say
platinum group.
gold's not considered critical, or silver at this stage, but everything else
Oh,
is platinum,
well, the
palladium.
market kind of is deciding gold is critical.
Well, I mean, yeah, for the fiat
The
reason that we,
politicians don't want to call gold critical. They want to keep printing things out of nothing and call that critical. But anyway,
yeah.
it's very exciting, Terry. I'm glad we had this conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that's it, Jay. It was, we set this up several weeks ago,
Yeah.
and of course we didn't know that we'd be releasing it tonight, but here we are. So it's perfect to share that moment with you and get this news out.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about it. I guess I'm going to have to ask my wife if we got some cash for some more shares.
Yeah,
She's in charge.
I think it's good. I mean, I just as an aside, in the last 5 weeks, I bought 600,000 more shares. So
Okay.
it's like, so it's like,
Well, you're helping to put those short
yeah.
sellers under, I suppose, Terry. But what sort of float is there now? I mean, is
You know
it
what?
you
I mean,
about half the stock is in retail?
yeah, I think the core eight guys own half the stock,
Okay.
and then on the other half, there's probably, I could throw my arms around 12 brokers that control the other 25%.
Okay. All
So
right.
then there's maybe like 25% that it's
Right.
in the ether. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. We traded. I put in two groups of 5 million shares each in the last 6 weeks. When we went through that cycle where a couple of the Aussie funds left for whatever reason, and then we got these other guys in, and so these were significant value funds, and then like just ultra high net worth individuals that are just coming in. And this is what we're finding. Like, I've had a lot of people outreach to us and say, hey, would like to do a financing. I'm saying, guys, we're not going to do a financing down here. We're good for cash, and we've got a
Mhm.
bunch of news coming, and we believe our re-rate's coming, and we will of course raise money at some point, but let's let the baby flow here. And of course the other thing that'll happen, Jay, is we've applied to the New York Stock Exchange, and it got derailed by the slowdown or the shutdown,
Yeah.
and then the stock fell off, and we didn't want to push it. At that point, when we knew there was a pile of good news coming, so we're thinking more like end of February type of thing. But that'll be good because we're excited. We've talked to a number of big U.S. funds, multi-strat funds that couldn't spell mining, a year ago.
Yeah.
And now they're like, these guys are coming in, they want to take the whole round. They'll say, hey,
Yeah.
you need 50 million bucks, here's 50 million bucks.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, that was not happening.
Well, 50
you know,
million bucks at a much higher share price, maybe.
yeah, that sounds good. That sounds a
Yeah.
good number.
All right, Terry. Carrie, thank you so much, Terry, for your time. It's great to get this update. It's a very upscale one. Yeah, it's really optimistic news we're getting from you. I think last year was a little quieter than we expected, but it looks like this year ought to be a
Yeah,
gangbuster.
it should be a barn burner, and I guess we'll see you at the metal forum and at PDAC.
Yep, I'm going to be there and actually going to be in. Will you be in Vancouver this weekend? Probably not,
I
right?
will not. I will
No.
not because I've been on the road. This will be going on over a little over 2 weeks now. So
Okay. All right.
that's
Well, we'll certainly see you up in Toronto at the Metals
okay.
Investor Forum. All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. And
Thanks, Jake. Have a
folks,
good night.
That's it for this program. Later this week, I'm going to talk to Kerry Landis. He's a board member of Hydrograph Clean Power. Haven't had a lot of news recently, so we're looking forward to hearing what Kerry has to say. And thanks again, Terry, for being with us today. So, folks, until next time, goodbye and God's blessings to you.